Spey House is one of the many properties owned by Johnnie Housing, which provides extra care housing for older people, including those with dementia. Technology-enabled care is at the heart of the approach to care and support at Spey House, helping residents to live independent lives as far as possible. This technology includes devices such as discrete, wearable watches or pendants, as well as various forms of sensor technology, all connected to Johnnie Housing's 24/7 alarm receiving centre, Astroline. Astroline supports over 70,000 people across the country and is responsible for the sourcing, testing and rollout of technology across Johnnie Housing and other housing and care providers and local authorities.
Whilst we're part of a housing association, very much focused on the delivery of core services to residents and tenants, Astroline, the Astroline piece of that, is something that works hand in glove with alongside those services. We provide services back in, and we actually look really to develop a sort of test and learn approach. You know, with all the residents that we have and all of the relationships that we have with our customers, we take an approach that allows us to try things before in a semi-real world setting, and that test and learn approach really helps us to adopt and evaluate the technology. What we're going to hopefully show you today and encourage you to see is the change really that's happened in recent years through this technology. So we're going to be showing you some wearables. People can wear those devices. They're SIM based. They're mobile. People can use them out of the home and be contactable. We're going to show you some passive sensor technology, which does its amazing work in the background and allows people to go about their daily routine while the sensor technology builds up a picture of that person's lifestyle and builds a really clear picture for family or carers or other agencies and stakeholders about what's happening in the home. Again, we think that's really vital as we've, all gone into lockdown over the last few months. Been able to see what's happening in somebody's home and their lifestyle in a very non-intrusive way is something that's really powerful. I think our digital journey started, I'd say 4 to 5 years ago, because we could see the change. Once BT announced in 2017 that it was switching off the analogue infrastructure in 2025, that's provided a real focus for us over the last few years, and that was the start of our digital journey, and we're going to share more of that with you. We're going to tell the end-to-end story really from the idea and the concept of moving our services across to digital to where we are now, and also where we're looking in the future and how we future-proofed our services and how we're really trying to stay one step ahead in terms of looking at things. We're going to talk to you about how we source digital technology. We're going to talk to you about how we source the digital partners that we work with, the robust processes that we use to evaluate, assess and onboard suppliers that we work with, because we're a demanding organisation. We want to work with the best of breed organisations that are